Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome again to Syriana Analysis. I'm your host, Kevork Almassian. Thank you very much for tuning in to today's live streaming. I appreciate you all, whether you're watching this stream on YouTube or on Rumble. Hello, Johan. How are you doing? Hello, Christina. She says, Israel and America, supported by the UK, causing horrors throughout the world, genocide, apartheid, exploitation, and so many countries are suffering from lack of essentials because of money wasted on worse. Hello, my friend Arkan. I hope I'm not butchering your name. Hello to you, Rampelsi01 and Muna Nasrallah. Hello to everyone. Also, Adrian. Hey, Kevork, about what you said yesterday, the Canadian intelligence offered me money in exchange for names of resistance members. I don't know about what topic you're talking about. If it's about you or about someone else, I didn't see your comment, unfortunately. Um, Twitch is probably a good platform. I tried to stream these live streamings on Twitch as well, but it didn't receive much of viewership there. So I stopped it. I'm only at the current moment focusing on YouTube and Rumble. However, very soon, I think starting from next week, Monday, I will also stream on a third platform. I'm going to keep it surprise to you. And I was approached and I've been contacted by a company saying that you lose nothing. You just can stream on this platform as well. And you will be treated fairly. And we know your content. You're not like trying to spread hatred or something. I'm just talking politics, analyzing the issues from my own perspective based on my humble experience and knowledge, which is something it seems unwelcomed on YouTube. So if you want to help me navigate through the algorithm and suppression on YouTube while you're watching this, it would be very appreciating if you just hit the like button. That's it, and probably leave a comment. Today, I promised you that I will speak with my friend, Dr. Karim from Hong Kong. Unfortunately, he is ill today. I'm also ill at the same day. Maybe my voice indicates that I'm ill, but I couldn't not do this stream. Probably tomorrow I need to rest. I don't know. It depends on the situation. It seems I either have a strong flu or COVID, just very strong coughs and fever. So it's really not so much fun having a fever and doing reading lots of articles and research, unfortunately. But I'm trying to do my best. So somebody is again criticizing the wrong. He says you're using the wrong microphone. Every day somebody criticizes some technical issues. In any case, yesterday I spoke about the USAID issue and how the USAID served as a Trojan horse in different countries in order to infiltrate the societies and spread political agendas in these countries in order to achieve the foreign policy goals of Washington, D.C. And USAID had tens of billions of dollars budget. So in this case, it seems that Trump and Elon Musk, they're trying to do a regime change inside the regime itself, basically by bringing the USAID under the umbrella of the US State Department. And yesterday I said this is a positive development for the rest of the world. However, we shouldn't really raise our hopes much because for me, I wouldn't imagine a United States acting in a sane manner because the political elite and the financial elite are still the same in the US. And these people, in my opinion, are warmongers and psychopaths. And they make financial profits from wars and destruction and regime change wars and stealing other countries' resources. Therefore, there will be a substitute for US aid. This is what I said. Now, when we finish the US aid, I just want to follow up. We will go to the second topic of today, which is going to be the visit of Abu Muhammad al-Jolani, aka Ahmed al-Shara, to Saudi Arabia. And the last part of this live streaming is going to be about Trump. He wants an approval from the Congress to send another $1 billion worth of weapons to Israel and why Trump wants to do that. And I've been trying to warn you about this case for a few weeks now. And some people even accuse me of being a Zionist, and some people said you're what, controlled opposition or something. But I'm being very honest with you, and I don't want to sell you illusions, and I don't want to come and create eye-catching thumbnails or titles telling you Israel is collapsing and it's going to be the end in a few weeks, in a matter of few days. No, that's not how we should assess the situation. We have to be correct in our approach because the situation now in Palestine is worse than it was a few weeks ago. Because what happened is basically that Israel achieved one of its goals in Gaza, and that is the act of genocide and the destruction of the Strip. And now they don't want to allow any humanitarian aid or any sort of products or materials that could reconstruct the Strip. And this is exactly what Israel wants. They want to basically starve and spread they want to spread hopelessness among the Palestinians in order to urge them for voluntary migration, which is ethnic cleansing, right? So Trump is doing exactly what Netanyahu wants to do. And one of the reasons for it is because his administration is again or his campaign during the elections was financed by an arch Zionist, and we're coming to that later in this discussion. But just at the beginning of this, because we have to wrap up what happened yesterday in the issue of the USAID, and Whitney Webb, which is a brilliant journalist. If you don't follow Whitney Webb, I think you're missing a lot. This woman is a genius. This woman is a brilliant investigative journalist. And sometimes when I watch her on TV or on, let's say, on other podcasts, I notice how much research she has done. And I don't know how she remembers all these names because personally, I yesterday told you I don't remember names. I'm very bad with names. She remembers the names very well. So this is her take on USAID, which completely aligns with my conviction. She says, while it's true that USAID is an intelligence cutout that has engaged in financing regime change and other terrible things, I feel that the independent media focus on USAID being dismantled, it is actually just going to be rehoused at the Rubio-run State Department, is distracting us from the fact that Musk was trying to turn X into the everything app that he wants to run more than half of the US financial system, and which is launching payment rails this year, just gained access to Americans' private banking information via the Treasury payment system. The everything app model, embodied by the infamous WeChat, is effectively a public-private app used to surveil people's communications and financial activity with often Orwellian consequences. USAID absolutely sucks, but we also need to keep our eye on the ball as big tech oligarchs beget techno-tyranny, and will do so very easily if we fail to scrutinize them and pay attention to the things they are openly building. Musk, in his new role, doesn't have to divest from any business interests, including X, and can easily use Doge or other means to fulfill his everything app desires and king-make companies which he owns, controls, or in which he is deeply invested. I think this is exactly where we are headed to, especially on X. This is no longer a secret that X is going to be like the everything app. Sooner or later, we will witness payments via X, which probably going to be linked to our bank accounts or PayPal or other means. I'm not sure about that, or probably to some cryptos. That would be probably less of a problematic if people can link their crypto wallets to X and do payments with crypto or buy Bitcoin. That would be, in my opinion, less of a problematic. However, the problem always lies in the digital world, that when there is an app like X giving you scores about your activity on the platform. And I would encourage you to go on X, and there is this section called Grok. This is the AI machine of X, and ask Grok to evaluate your profile. And Grok will give you a score. And my score is, for example, 36 or 38 out of 100, which means this is some sort of a social credit system that Musk is building. Meanwhile, he is speaking against this type of financial and social credit systems, and he has been lobbying against the types of Klaus Schwab, but he's doing exactly that. He was running against Bill Gates and other billionaires for doing exactly this, but he's doing the same. He's implementing the same agenda in his name. And he is someone who has gained lots of, let's say, credibility and trust, especially among the people who are most suspicious of these issues, among the, let's say, the conservatives, Republicans in the United States, who were very, I would say, suspicious of whatever happened after Corona, and the agendas of the World Economic Forum, the digital IDs, and the social credit system. So this is where Elon Musk came and said he's going to buy X because he believes in free speech, and he capitalized on X in order to build the same system that the people were suspicious of. But now he came as a warrior, as a hero, as someone who is liked by most of the conservative people. And I would go one step further and say Elon Musk definitely pays people to PR firms in order to spread his videos, in order to spread his thoughts, in order to legitimize his projects, and downplay the dangers of his projects, one of which is Neuralink, and the second thing is the Everything app. So there are so many people who are pushing against this, and they have big, massive following on social media platforms. And now they're the ones working with Elon Musk, basically, and doing exactly what they said they would never do. So if you want to know who Elon Musk is cooperating with, you could go to his X account and see who is amplifying which voices he's amplifying. It's very clear, in my opinion. It doesn't take a genius to know. So if you want to stay just a little bit in the issue of USAID before we wrap up this case, because yesterday I said that the USAID supported Syrian activists and journalists, including my former university colleagues, some of them, of course. And this is a more comprehensive research by our friend Didi Geopolitics. And she says USAID funneled $15 billion into Syria to overthrow Assad. NGOs, this is a quotation by the former president of Syria, Bashar al-Assad, in 2018. He said, NGOs are being used to destabilize Syria. They pretend to help, but in reality, they work for foreign intelligence services. So DD Geopolitics says for over a decade, USAID, NED, and Western-backed NGOs played a central role in the Syrian war, financing opposition groups, manufacturing propaganda, and running intelligence operations under the cover of humanitarian aid. In 2024, after years of Western-backed subversion, sanctions, and military pressure, Assad was finally overthrown. NGOs as a weapon. So the USAID, for example, funneled $15 billion into Syria while secretly funding opposition networks and anti-government operations. They also bankrolled the White Helmets, a group exposed for collaborating with Al-Qaeda and staging propaganda videos to justify US intervention. And they provided logistical support to opposition groups in exile, helping to create a US-backed shadow government. We have also, beside the USAID, we have the NED, and they also served as a cover for destabilization. NED financed Barada TV, an opposition media in Syria, and this was based in Washington, and they broadcasted anti-Assad propaganda. They funded pro-democracy NGOs that later channeled resources to jihadist factions, including the FSA. They supported exiled Syrian activists, preparing them to take power once Assad was removed. We also have open society foundations belonging to Soros, for example. They pushed anti-Assad narratives in global media, portraying the war as a grassroots uprising rather than a Western-backed coup. They coordinated with US intelligence-backed groups to facilitate regime change efforts, and they advocated for mass migration policies that pressured European nations to accept millions of Syrian refugees, a crisis directly caused by the US-backed war. So those are the projects that they have worked in Syria, and they succeeded, in my opinion, to attract many people, especially among the younger generation. My colleagues, my friends, people younger than me, older than me. I know people who work for the USAID. I know people all of a sudden they started carrying very expensive cameras, for example. Like I remember before the war in Syria, how many people used to carry expensive Canons or Sonys with very long zoom lenses. I mean, very few people, right? And then after the war, you see all these journalists carrying with them the fancy cameras, fancy microphones, and doing reports on the ground embedded with the jihadi groups, right? And they have become very famous. They even received prizes. They were invited to global conferences. They have received medals and honored. So this is how things work. Not even once anyone invited me for being a Syrian journalist or gave me a medal or honored me or let's say arranged a meeting with a world leader or any of these so-called journalist NGOs communicated with me or said, thank you for what you're doing. You're telling us the other side of the story, right? But nobody was interested in that because they were only interested in one side, and that side is the jihadi side because they wanted regime change, and all the investment was on the other side. So when people come and say, since 14 years I've been accused, if I received $1 for every time I was accused for being on the payroll of Assad, probably I would have had now $1 million in my bank account, But for those people, I would ask a simple question. If I was paid by Assad, now Assad is gone, so who is financing my work? How can my work continue in the same pace and even better if I was paid by Assad? Assad fled. Let's suppose he was paying me, right? But the people who were paid by USAID, what is going to happen to them? Now people will come and celebrate it and say, oh, fine, finally, the funding of these activists will be cut. Yes, but believe me, here comes Qatar and enters the chat room because there is no shortage of money in Qatar. And if the USAID and the CIA withdraw from these operations, the covert operations and supporting the journalists and activists, then Qatar will come and fill the vacuum. It's simple. There is no shortage of dollars there. So everything will be left for Qatar in the region. And Qatar is the most dangerous country, in my opinion, in terms of corrupting the brains of the people and turning them against their own countries, turning them against the backers of the, let's say, the Hezbollah and Hamas. This is the psyop of Qatar. Very few people notice it, but I'm highly convinced that Qatar's role is very bogus and very shady in the region, and Qatar is the largest state sponsor of terrorism in the region. I think were it not for Saudi Arabia and Qatar, these two countries, they would not be ISIS and al-Nusra and Al-Qaeda and all these groups. Both are the, I would say, the root cause for the ideological foundation of Al-Qaeda and ISIS and other groups, and also the financial backers, right? Turkey is definitely a major player, but mostly Turkey is a logistical hub and a transfer hub for these jihadists to Syria. But Turkey doesn't have the money, Qatar does, and Saudi Arabia does. So, as we speak about Saudi Arabia, the first state visit of Abu Muhammad al-Jolani was to Saudi Arabia, and the Association Press has celebrated it. And I also want you to notice the tone of this celebration. First of all, they call him Syria's interim president. I don't know who elected him, And how can somebody appoint himself as a interim president? Under what legal conditions somebody can become a president of a country? I don't really understand, but he is. So he made his first visit abroad on Sunday, and he traveled to Saudi Arabia. And Association Press is celebrating it and saying this is likely a signal that Damascus, the current rulers of Damascus, they are going to shift away from Iran as its main regional ally. So Association Press says that Ahmed al-Shara, who is Abu Muhammad al-Jolani, who was once aligned with Al-Qaeda. He was not aligned with Al-Qaeda. He was the founder of the Al-Qaeda offshoot in Syria. So they don't tell us the full story. They say he landed in Riyadh alongside his government's foreign minister, Al-Shibani. And basically, they traveled with Saudi plane. Saudi Arabia sent them a plane, and they came to Riyadh with Saudi airplane. And the Saudi state television, basically, they celebrated and trumpeted Shara's visit, and that this was his first outside destination. And there was these, the new revolution flag flying in Saudi Arabia, blah, blah, blah. So, but then they say Saudi Arabia has been among the Arab nations that poured money into insurgent groups that tried to topple Bashar al-Assad since 2011. And this is something that is very important that most people do not know, that Saudi Arabia literally had proxy groups in Syria, one of which is Jaish al-Islam, or Islam's army. It was the biggest armed group in the suburbs of Damascus, and they occupied the suburbs of Damascus, especially eastern Ghouta, for around 4 years. However, Al-Shara and HTS Association Press says carefully managed their public image in the time since the regime change, and he is now dressing an olive-colored military look, like you remember this dress that he is wearing, this T-shirt that he wears like Zelensky, and even the Association Press says this looks similar to the Ukrainian President Zelensky, because both of them are puppets, and probably they have the same PR team whitewashing them. And that then Association Press drops a complete BS, says that Shara or Jolani is trying to, manage his public image by appointing women to roles in Syria. Yes, he appointed a woman in in the Office of Women's Affairs, basically, and she said in her first interview that she's not going to tolerate any opposition to her ideas, and she's a dual citizen of Turkey and Syria. And under the former Assad government, it was not allowed for people who are dual citizens to have such senior positions. But here we go, we have many Turkish citizens getting higher positions, and she's very intolerant, saying that women have a special place. We don't have to give them lots of opportunities or rights to become judges, or she says the women have a unique nature and their brains are different from men. I mean, I'm one of the people who support the equality of opportunities. Like if a woman wants to become a politician or an engineer, which is probably some people say they shouldn't. I'm just saying probably. And but some people choose this path. I'm not someone who wants an equality of outcome. I'm for an equality of opportunities. If a woman wants to join any career, I don't mind that. But the Association Press says Al-Jolani is trying to keep ties with Syria's Christian and Shiite Alawite populations, which is completely, again, BS, because everything Jolani has done up until this moment has been cosmetic, and he's using the Christians as a decoration in his government, basically, his regime. But the Alawites and the Shiites are not part of anything in his government. The Alawites are being persecuted and they're being executed in the streets, and they're being accused of being regime remnants, right? So In this case, it seems that the foreign minister of Saudi Arabia, Faisal bin Farhan, says that Riyadh is going to engage with the partners in order to lift the sanctions on Syria, the HDS rule Syria. And just before his visit to Saudi Arabia, of course, he met with Tamim, his real boss. Tamim is the Emir of Qatar in Damascus. I just want to show you this video of Sharaf's visit to Riyadh. So this is the video published by the state TV of Saudi Arabia, and this is Crown Prince and Ahmed Shara meeting. And look at the smile on his face of the Crown Prince. I'm sure they're very happy in Saudi Arabia finally to get rid of Assad and having the man in power. I mean, at the end of the day, Shara has been the mostly, let's say, Turkish and Qatari agent. However, with Saudi Arabia, they have also received considerable aid. So now the situation has changed upside down. A few months ago, Assad was sitting here, and now we have the Jolani, the founder of Al Qaeda. And this woman, by the way, if you see her, her name is Razan Safour. It's crazy. Like sometimes I'm getting like goosebumps when I see these people basically being in government positions in Syria because they have a track record and a history. And in this case, I think we have to shed light on what our friend, Professor David Miller, wrote about this exactly, because this is her, as I mentioned. And he says, if you ever doubted that the UK is on the same side as ISIS, now you know. Here is Muslim Brotherhood Nepo baby Razan Safour, daughter of prominent Syrian Muslim Brotherhood member and NATO asset Walid Safour, on the ISIS regime's delegation to Riyadh this week. This wasn't her first gig for ISIS. She was at Davos, accompanying the ISIS international liaison officer Asad al-Shibani as he blundered his way through an extremely awkward fireside chat with fellow war criminal and genocidaire Tony Blair, which even had Blair wincing. Razan has spent the past few years in Doha as part of a Muslim Brotherhood network that has an iron grip over Qatari media outlets like Al Jazeera English, Doha News, and Al Arabi Al Jadid. The purpose of this Muslim Brotherhood network is the same as that of ISIS, the Zionist state and NATO, to foment sectarian hatred, undermine the resistance axis, and to portray material resistance to Zionism as futile. They have Iraq, Yemen, and Iran in their sights, believing they have taken Syria and Lebanon. As I have said before, those who are celebrating today are misguided to believe they have won anything. The war is only just beginning, and both Razan and the UK have chosen to fight it on the side of ISIS. That's why I said, like, I receive some goosebumps when I see such photos. And where my country is headed to, I'm asking myself this question, like, where were we and what happened to our country, and what type of people basically are ascending in the government positions in Syria? Those are intelligence assets for Qatar, for Turkey, for NATO, for the Muslim Brotherhood. And they all work for the same goal. They all work for the sake of the United States supremacy over the region. And to be honest with you, my problem is not that they are assets for US and Qatar and Britain and the Muslim Brotherhood, basically. My problem is that they are hypocritical and they don't mention what is their real goal. They pretend to be pro-Palestine, they wear the kufiya, they raise the Palestine flag, but at the same time, they work hand in hand with the Zionist lobby to destroy their own country. And why would any congressman in Washington, D.C. be interested in Syria because of Israel? Syria didn't pose any threat to the US. The only threat Syria posed was on Israel. And they work with congressmen like Joe Wilson. They cooperate with every Zionist Israel First congressman and congresswoman, which is 99% of the members of Congress, basically. They cooperate with them and collaborate with them every day. They meet on selfie meetings and food, lunch, dinner. They work to draft laws and sanctions against Syria under the Assad regime, of course. And then they do this manipulation to the people, like raise the Palestine flag. How hypocritical are they? It's just mind-boggling, right? By the way, for the first time, Ahmed al-Shara or Abu Muhammad al-Jolani has shown us his wife or one of his wives, because the rumors say that he has 3 wives. We don't know. He says he has only 1 wife, so I don't know how many wives he really has. This is his wife. He was in Umrah, basically in Mecca. A notable first appearance of Ahmed al-Shara's wife on pilgrimage to Mecca as part of the official visit of the former HTS leader to Saudi Arabia. Her name is Latifa al-Darubi. Had never been seen publicly with her husband. She seems very young, in probably early 20s or something, I don't know. And to be honest with you, I have nothing against her dress code. Nothing. Everyone is free. I'm not against dress code. I'm just discussing politics here. And I think her hubby is not really a tolerant person. And he wouldn't tolerate if she decides to take off her veil. Right? He wouldn't. That's all what I'm going to say about this case. So since Abu Muhammad al-Jolani visited Saudi Arabia, we have to remind ourselves the role of Saudi Arabia in this case. This is a National Security Agency document, NSA document, says Saudi prince directly ordered coordinated attacks by Syrian rebels on Damascus. This was in 2013, then later leaked to the press in 2017. So a loosely knit collection of Syrian rebel fighters set up positions on March 18, 2013, and fired several barrages of rockets at targets in the heart of Damascus, Bashar al-Assad's capital. The attack was a brazen show of force by rebels under the banner of the Free Syrian Army, targeting the presidential palace, Damascus International Airport, and the government security compound. It sent a chilling message to the regime about its increasingly shaky hold on the country 2 years after an uprising against its rule began. Behind the attacks, the influence of a foreign power loomed. According to a top-secret National Security Agency document provided by whistleblower Edward Snowden, the March 2013 rocket attacks were directly ordered by a member of the Saudi royal family. His name is Prince Salman bin Sultan, to help mark the second anniversary of the so-called Syrian revolution. Salman had provided 120 tons of explosives and other weaponry to opposition forces, giving them instructions to, quote, light up Damascus and flatten the airport, the document produced by US government surveillance on Syrian opposition factions shows. So the Saudis were long bent on unseating Assad. Salman was one of the key Saudi officials responsible for prosecuting the war in Syria, serving as a high-ranking intelligence official before being promoted to Deputy Minister of Defense later in 2013. So can someone please tell me how is it possible to receive all these funds and weapons from Saudi Arabia and still call it an organic popular revolution? Like, this is the document of the NSA, basically. So this is the code of the document S2E332, issued 3 single sources reports in March 2013 on Syrian opposition attacks against Damascus. One reports gave US 3 days warning about the March 18, 2013 attacks, 2 years anniversary of the revolution. 2, Saudi Prince Salman bin Sultan directed opposition to, quote, light up Damascus and flatten airport. 3, Saudis sent 120 tons of explosives weapons to opposition forces. Attacks against airport, presidential palace, and other locations occurred on 18 March, and Saudis were very pleased with the outcome, and PRISM providing almost all collection on opposition plans and operations. So the Americans were watching, and they learned about the attack even before it happened. Now, Prince Salman is not the only one who was involved in the operations in Syria, but also Bandar bin Sultan. This is Bandar bin Sultan. I think this is in 2003 with George Bush, when George Bush was the president, and Bandar bin Sultan was the ambassador of Saudi Arabia to Washington, D.C., and he was himself called Bandar Bush for having family relationship. And I believe his daughter now is the ambassador of Saudi Arabia to Washington, D.C. So once he came to power, or once Bandar bin Sultan, he became the head of the intelligence in early 2013. And this attack happened also in March 2013. They wanted to occupy Damascus and finish the job quickly, and they couldn't really do it. So there was a counterattack from the Syrian army against them, and they defeated these so-called insurgents. So this is my thesis, this is my theory. I believe that the Syrian attack, which happened in August 18 or 20, 2013, was orchestrated by Saudi intelligence and basically their proxy army, which was Jaish al-Islam, or back then it was called Liwa al-Islam. Islam's army carried out this Syrian false flag attack in order to accuse the former Assad government of gassing his own people and invite foreign intervention. And I spoke about this in length on Syriana Analysis. I think if you're interested about it, you can just search in my channel Chemical Attack and you will watch all these videos in length. Now, Bandar bin Sultan, when he came to as the head of the national intelligence of Saudi Arabia, he called the foreign ministers of other countries, Arabic countries basically, and probably also heads of intelligence, and he asked them to allocate $2 trillion to overthrow Assad. I don't know how many zeros are there in 2 trillions. I think even my calculator doesn't accept 2 trillion, but that's a lot of money. For $2 trillion, you can reconstruct entire Arab world and bring it back to the golden age, basically. This is how much money he asked from the Arabs, from the Arabic countries. I think they could, I'm sure they couldn't allocate $2 trillion because the estimates are around $200 billion worth of weapons, ammunition, support, logistics, training, and all this stuff, non-lethal aid to these opposition groups and to the Kurds. So $200 billion is again lots of money compared to the money they sent to Ukraine, and the size of Syria compared to Ukraine, it's a huge amount of money. So this is the former foreign minister of Qatar, basically. He was on TV speaking about this exact this case, and I translated it, subtitled it to English for you. So you have to focus on the subtitles. I've shown this video multiple times. For those who haven't seen, I will show them down. So focus on the subtitles. It tells a lot about the situation in Syria. So Bandar bin Sultan asked $2 trillion to overthrow Assad, but they couldn't. This is $2,000 billion, as Johan says. That's a lot. I don't think they managed to secure this amount. I'm sure that $200 billion was very plausible number. And I mean, just imagine how much money they dumped in Syria. If they dump this money to reconstruction and building schools and universities, like sometimes it's so crazy. These Arab rulers, they like destroying their own countries, right? The destruction they have inflicted in Syria. I mean, even if the US wanted to start a regime change, were it not for the money of Qatar and Saudi Arabia, they couldn't operate, they couldn't advance their agenda, they couldn't implement the program, they couldn't finance all this militants. This is the money of the Arabic people being invested in the destruction of another Arabic people. This is the bitter truth about it. Guys, as you're watching this stream, as you may know, this YouTube channel is heavily suppressed by YouTube. So I would very appreciate it if you just hit the like button or leave a comment while you're watching this. That would help me a lot. So let's move to Trump after speaking about Syria. And I want definitely to speak about his aid, the new anticipated so-called military aid to Israel. But just before that, for you to show the mentality of Trump. So we have a report now basically says that Trump wants Ukraine to supply the US with rare earth minerals as a form of payment for financially supporting the country's war efforts against Russia. So there is no longer going to be free military aid to Ukraine. It wasn't free in any ways. All these bankers, like BlackRock, Vanguard, they came and they have exclusive deals for reconstruction, and they have bought massive land and agricultural land in Ukraine, and probably parts where there are the minerals anyways. But now Trump says we have already paid enough, I think 180 billions or something. Now we want for Ukraine to pay us back with their earth minerals. And Trump says, quote, we're telling Ukraine they have very valuable rare earth. We're looking to do a deal with Ukraine where they're going to secure what we are giving them with their rare earths and other things. So for you to know, rare earths are a group of 17 metals used to make magnets that turn power into motion for electric vehicles, cell phones, and other electronics. So they desperately want that. The US Geological Survey considers 50 minerals to be critical for the country's economy and national defense, including several types of rare earths, nickel and lithium. Ukraine contains large deposits of uranium, lithium, and titanium. Although none are considered to be among the world's 5 biggest by volume, and the US has its own untapped reserves of those and other critical minerals. However, the US has only one operating rare earths mine and very little processing capacity, although several companies are working to develop projects in the country. On the other hand, China is the world's largest producer of rare earths and many other critical minerals. So they want these critical earth minerals to keep these high-tech technologies in the US operating, including EVs for Elon Musk and the smartphone production, right? And I mean, since 2022 or even 2021, we've been saying this and warning the Ukrainian people that this war is between the US and Russia. This is not between Russia and Ukraine. This is a proxy war, and the Ukrainians are being used as cannon fodder in the face of Russia because the United States wants to achieve few goals in Ukraine, one of which is to draw a rift in Ukraine between Russia and the rest of Europe. So Russia would not be able to supply cheap energy to Western Europe, and Western Europe would supply Russia with technology. So they fear this economic integration between Russia and Europe, and this would create a strong Eurasian region, which is basically independent. And once there is business relationship, technological relationship between these both sides, this creates trust, and the trust creates new security architecture. And finally, this will lead to the conclusion that European countries really do not need NATO to protect themselves because there is no enemy coming and fighting against them if there is a normal relationship. But if there is a boogeyman like Russia, which did the invasion and attacked Ukraine, then there is a boogeyman, and this means that NATO is needed, right? But the Ukrainians paid the biggest price, over 600,000 deaths among the Ukrainian men, and now they are losing their country completely. So Zelensky is basically selling out the country to foreign investors, and probably the people who are now surrounding Trump, the tech billionaires. And in this case, I'm being very honest with you. I mean, I don't see there is a future for Ukraine. And Ukraine could demise under such circumstances if they don't have any access to their earth minerals or any resources to sustain as a country. I mean, this is the same playbook of imperialism, but it's a reverse. Like they're pretending to be friends with Ukraine, whereas they are using Ukraine as a cannon fodder against Russia, and at the same time using the weakness of Ukraine to take over the earth minerals of the country. I think this was Lindsey Graham who said a few months ago, we can't leave $3 trillion worth of earth minerals to Russia and China. This is why they're fighting over Ukraine. It's not about democracy and all these cliches, right? So we have to be careful in our analysis. I think the last point, which is very important for today, like this is the topic basically, is the US readies a new $1 billion arms sale to Israel, and this was revealed by the Wall Street Journal. So the Trump administration has asked congressional leaders to approve new transfers of roughly $1 billion worth of bombs and other military hardware to Israel at a time when the White House is working to preserve a fragile ceasefire in Gaza. The planned weapons sales include 4,700 1,000-pound bombs. So this is how much? I don't know the calculation really. Like, so they're going to send 4,700 bombs. Each bomb is 1 ton or 1,000 pound. So it is amounts worth. This is worth more than $700 million. In addition to armored bulldozers, caterpillars worth more than 300 million to Israel. The new arms requests, which would be paid for from the billions of dollars in annual U.S. military aid to Israel, come as Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu is visiting Washington and set to meet President Trump. He is now in Washington, D.C. Netanyahu and other Israeli officials are expected to press Trump to move forward with a separate set of arms transfers that were initially requested by the Biden administration, totaling more than $8 billion in new bombs, missiles, and artillery rounds. So it's not only this $1 billion, it's in total $8 billion worth of weapons going to Israel. And why would Israel need $8 billion worth of weapons and bombs, and against who are they going to use? Like, think about it. Who is the biggest enemy of Israel now in the region? Iran. Are they going to use bulldozers against Iran? No. Are they going to drop these bombs on Iran? No, because they will use their F-16s, they will use their F-35s, they will use their other missile systems, and not these conventional bombs falling on the heads of who exactly? Palestinian people. And probably later again against the Lebanese people. Syria is completely now sidelined and it's been neutralized. Israel doesn't see Syria as a threat any longer. Muhammad Jolani is not going to pose any threat against them. So, who's the enemy? The Palestinians and the Lebanese. Why? The reason is very simple. They want to advance the ethnic cleansing agenda in Gaza and in the West Bank. And this has been very clear to me once Israel accepted the ceasefire agreement that they are going to, like, while the people were celebrating, I said, let's be cautious. Celebration is good. For people survived a brutal onslaught. This is why we should celebrate. Those who were, let's say, emerged alive from this brutal, barbaric bombardment from the Israeli side. But we have to be cautious because calling this a victory is it's a little bit problematic for me. Because victory is something that you can translate a military victory into political gains. And in the case of Gaza, what kind of political gains the Palestinians are going to receive? Are they going to have reconstruction? Are they going to have a lifting the siege? No. Are they going to have an airport? No. Are they going to have a seaport? No. Are they going to have an easy access to the rest of the world? No. In the contrary, the region is completely destroyed. And yesterday I read basically a post by a Palestinian in Gaza. I think he summarized the situation perfectly. I'm just going to see if I can find that, because I think if you're being honest with the situation in Gaza, it's very, very catastrophic, and it's very frightening that the situation there is very dire for the people. They can't really survive this without outside support, right? So I'm just checking in my X feed, because the things that I hit the like, it pops up later, but so it seems it's anyways. It's difficult to find it at the current moment, but I found a post by Palestinians saying, telling the people the situation is worse than you would imagine. Like, people may be celebrating the ceasefire, I understand it, but we're here, guys, in a very, very dire situation. Like, the basic necessities, we don't have it here. So think about us. This is not a time for celebration. It's time for thinking how we can improve the situation for the Palestinians. So I think in this case, we have to definitely refer to the one person who donated, I believe, $100 million to Donald Trump's electoral campaign, and Miriam Adelson. And she basically bragged about how Trump let Israel do whatever it wants to do. She cites moving the embassy to Jerusalem, illegally recognizing the Golan Heights, and withdrawing from the Iran deal. I think she's the driving force behind this policy, let's say, of Trump to ethnically cleanse the Palestinians from Gaza to Egypt and from the West Bank to Jordan. Let's take a look.
That president is Donald Trump. He promised to recognize Jerusalem and to move the embassy to Jerusalem. Promise kept. He promised to withdraw from Iran nuclear deal, and promise kept. He promised to bring peace between Israel and Arab nations. Promise kept. And all in Golan Heights, that was a big gift. He promised Golan Heights, and he recognized. And all of this he did in his first term while battling COVID pandemic, race riots, and the liberal media. Now I want to tell you, politicians make promises. Real leaders keep promises.
So she's the driving force behind this ethnic cleansing, and this is what Donald Trump is echoing at the current moment. He says he's encouraging basically Israel to occupy more territories in Palestine, as if what they occupy is not enough anyways.
It's a small country in terms of land. See this pen, this wonderful pen? My desk is the Middle East. And this pen, the top of the pen, that's Israel. That's not good, right? You know, it's a pretty big difference. I use that as an analogy. It's pretty accurate, actually. It's a pretty small piece of land. And it's amazing that they've been able to do what they've been able to do when you think about it. It's a lot of good, smart brain power. But it is a very small piece of land, no question about it.
So I expect escalation soon in West Bank, and while I was expecting it today, I saw basically a photo coming from the West Bank. This is photo I will show you. So this is in the West Bank, not in Gaza. As we are live, this was a few hours ago. Israel is now using American-supplied bombs and explosives to blow up entire apartments buildings in the West Bank. They took out 23 entire buildings over the weekend, leaving thousands of people homeless with nothing more than what they could carry. So I'm not trying to be pessimistic. I'm trying to be realistic. So therefore, I say be cautious and be ready, because Israel and the United States are not going to stop. And they're not going to stop. They're going to come after the Palestinians. And what happened in Syria is the biggest service for them. I think that the axis of resistance has received a major blow. And also in Lebanon, in Syria, in Gaza, and I think Iran is not going to do its Operation Promise 3. The time has passed. You call me whatever you want. I'm not talking with you all. Some people come and say, you're attacking my country. I'm not attacking your country. I'm just stating facts. Operation Promise 3 has not been materialized. And the Hezbollah has been completely decapitated, the leadership. And I don't see the current leadership is as competent as the previous one. And with the loss of Syria, I think the situation in the region and the balance of power is in favor of Turkey, is in favor of Saudi Arabia, is in favor of the US, is in favor of Israel. I'm just being very honest with you. So if being honest makes me a Zionist, that's the problem of the people who want to think wishful thinking and not solid facts. And in this case, I want to say something even more. If there is any Palestinian, whether it's an ordinary Palestinian or an opinion leader who is happy by the regime change in Syria, I think these people should really, like, they're celebrating their own demise, basically. So I wouldn't take them seriously, whoever that person is. And I think that these people either completely misled or they are bought. And in both cases, I don't care whether they're this or that because they are very harmful, let's say, to their own people, basically, to the Palestinians. So this is, isn't plugged. My microphone is plugged in. Everybody, okay, let me see again. So do you hear me, guys, again? Can you please confirm that you hear me? I just want to know if you hear me. Yes, great. So I just wanted to say one more thing, which is I said the Palestinians who celebrated the regime change in Syria, they're basically shooting their own feet. Whether this person is just an ordinary person or whether this person is an opinion leader or he's a journalist, etc., etc., I can't really seriously take them seriously because they are their own enemies, and I don't like such characters. So this was just you just don't sound as clear as usual. I'm very ill, as I said. I'm having a fever already, like burning my skin. So I'm trying to be a little bit. I can't really raise my voice a lot. I'm coughing, so I apologize for that. I will probably take a rest tomorrow. I don't know if I can do live streaming tomorrow in this situation because I'm getting more ill. Let's say I was better yesterday and today in the morning. Now in the afternoon, I feel like it's getting worse with the fever and the chest and everything. So excuse me for that. I don't know if I'm going to do tomorrow, guys. So please forgive me for if I don't do it. But if I can, I will definitely do it. So until then, if you like my content, I would really appreciate it if you hit the like button before leaving, subscribe, which is very important. Let's hit the 100K goal. And if you like to support my work, you can become a patron, patreon.com/Syriana Analysis, or there are 3-4 other means in the description below. See whatever you prefer, only if you can, of course. And I will see you very soon. So it's either tomorrow, after tomorrow, it depends on my situation. So guys, I wish you health and peace. Peace be upon you, upon your families. So.